football fans, and welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and I am joined, as always, by my trusty co-host, Dave Oster.
Hey, guys.
And Mark Weber.
How's it going, guys?
And we got a special guest today. I want to take a little bit to introduce him for you guys. He used to be a part of the Onside Kick, and then he kind of left us, but he's back. The prodigal son returns. Brandon Swanson is in the house. Brandon, how's it going?
It's going well, guys. It's going really well. I'm happy to be back.
Well, you came back at the right time because today's a little bit Super Bowl talk. I don't know if you guys knew, but the Super Bowl's going on.
I had no idea, so thanks for letting me know. I live under a rock, so I didn't know.
Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, it's all we're going to talk today before we get into, at the end, Roger Goodell's State of the League address. But today, Peyton Manning, Richard Sherman. This is the last time we're going to talk about this before the game on Sunday. After the whole media week, what are you guys thinking going into Super Bowl Sunday?
Well, after all of this, all the hype and everything that's going into it, I think it's going to be a good game. I think that you're going to be seeing the number one offense going against the number one defense. Obviously, a lot of the talk at the beginning of the week and last week was Richard Sherman, which I think they put too much talk and too much hype into what was said and how he did his interview, which I think what he said is probably true. I mean, Michael Crabtree is a sorry receiver now. He didn't win the game. He'd be pretty sorry about not winning. But I think the way he did it, you don't need to yell at Aaron Andrews. She's a wonderful woman. There's no need to yell at her. But I think that it's going to be a really good game. I'm excited for it. And the comments back and forth between Sherman and Manning, it's pretty funny.
Well, and to get into that a little bit, but the Peyton Manning-Sherman comments, Sherman comes out and says Peyton Manning, all he does is throw ducks. And then you got Peyton Manning being Peyton Manning himself, being like, yeah, you know what, I take pride in that. I do throw a lot of ducks for, a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. So he's like, I take pride in that.
And the underlying thing and all of that, if you read between the lines, what he was trying to say is, all I want is a damn beer. That's what he's saying.
And maybe a Papa John's pizza. But I think with this one, I like it because it perfectly demonstrates what I said last week, which are just the kind of player I like. There's nothing wrong with what Richard Sherman says.
You like the boring, take it one game at a time, we got to execute the X's and O's.
I like class.
Does he sound like that?
I like class. Is what I like. But I like the fact that, Richard Sherman, he goes on the attack. Peyton Manning just goes, I'm just going to let it bounce off me. I'll kind of throw it off as kind of a sarcastic joke. I like that.
I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Peyton Manning's just been around for so long. He's dealt with these kind of situations before. I mean, he's not a new guy to the league. He's been to a couple Super Bowls now. I think Peyton Manning just has that kind of thing with the press, and he deals with the public a lot. He does all the commercials for Papa John's. He's a very out in the public guy. Richard Sherman has just found his spotlight. He's trying to make a name for himself. I think he's just kind of, I don't want to say it's shock and awe, but he's saying some things that he probably wouldn't be normally because of the attention he's getting.
Peyton Manning's like that senior looking at Richard Sherman as the freshman who comes in, and Peyton's going, man, was I like that as a freshman? I don't think so. And the freshman's trying to be all cool and everything with Richard Sherman now that he's found that spotlight. And Dave, like you said, Peyton Manning, he's been there, he's done that. He's cool, calm, collected, and I think Richard Sherman will eventually one day get to that spot where there's no words that need to be said, it's just the play, and I think he knows that.
I don't necessarily know if he will get there, because I think when you're so early on in your career and you build this as your persona, this is your brand now. You have to be this. People want you to be this even more, and if Richard Sherman calms down in 2 years, people are going to be like, oh, whatever happened to Richard Sherman back when he was a firecracker, back when he was good? You're going to get those type of things.
You don't have to worry.
Fans.
Richard Sherman's never going to quiet down.
And he shouldn't. This is his character.
The whole Seahawks, you ask any team, and they're like, why are people surprised? This is who Richard Sherman is. Just because he said this after winning the NFC title game, now everybody wants to talk about it. Richard Sherman's always going to talk.
It was Seattle. Nobody really cares about their media scene. They don't have one. And as far as most of the NFL is centered around the East Coast and the Midwest. So, we get to see them for like 1 or 2 games a year. But you're right. This Seattle defense is known for shit talking. They're a hard defense to play against, and they know it, and they flaunt it. That's their game.
See, and the one thing, and Dave, you brought it up, and this is the one thing I've been thinking all week about Peyton Manning. Yes, he has won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2, but to me, I know that he was going up against Drew Brees in the Super Bowl. He lost, But that Saints defense was nothing to be joked about, and they held Peyton Manning to 17 points in that game. And you can argue if the Bears didn't show up and, Reggie Miller it, do a little choke action, they could have beaten the Colts too.
Well, I think we also got to remember Rex Grossman, all right?
Yeah, I said the Bears. I didn't say just the
try not to
defense.
No,
remember
remember Rex
Rex
Grossman.
You gotta unleash the
When you
beast
say the
sometimes.
Bears, you're ignoring the credit that Rex Grossman deserves for that loss.
No, I know. I didn't say just the defense. I meant the entire team, except for Devin Hester with his first kickoff return.
Delivered.
That was about it.
You're not giving Rex Grossman the full power that the man
so
deserves.
you wanted me to say that Rex Grossman choked.
Rex
not the
Grossman's
Bears.
incapacity to move the football up and down the field for the entire game. I mean, it was
beautiful. Wonderful performance by Rex Grossman.
But we did have a very good defense that year. Let's be honest. It was a top 5 defense all time. And the thing you have to remember is Man was still able to push the ball. I mean, it was kind of soggy conditions that day. It was a little sloppy play. But still, he's played up against pretty much top defenses before. The only thing that's different now is, his neck obviously limits his mobility a little bit. He's very good for his age, but that offensive line, you got to be worrying. I mean, he's one of the least sacked quarterbacks, but still, that Seahawks front line, scary.
And one thing that people have been talking about this week is with the Super Bowl being outside, with the weather conditions, who cares? Who cares? Football is a game that should be played outside. It's not an indoor sport. It should be played outside in the elements. You go out, both teams have the same obstacle to overcome in the weather if it is bad weather.
But they don't encounter the same obstacle. That's the thing, is each team is built differently, so the weather affects them differently.
Well, but the thing is that they both know going into it that there's going to be weather. You practice according to what it's going to be like, and if people come out and say it's 50-mile-an-hour winds, I don't know, and Peyton Manning can't throw the football. Oh, the reason, and say Seattle would win. The reason Seattle won is because Peyton Manning was unable to throw. No, the reason that Seattle won is because the Broncos were then unable to change their game plan to be able to find success. That's what it is. So don't make excuses about the weather.
Well, and I mean, to me, everyone's going to talk until Sunday about Peyton Manning, Richard Sherman, the Broncos offense, and their numerous receivers against LOB, the Legion of Boom.
That is awesome.
That's what everyone's talking about. But for me, I'm looking at it from the other side. The Saints, I'm going to refer back to that February 2010 Super Bowl. Yes, the defense shut down Peyton Manning and the Colts, but Drew Brees had himself a game. And to me, I feel like if the Seahawks defense can do what they need to do to just limit Peyton Manning, all they need is either Russell Wilson or beast mode Marshawn Lynch to do something, and they can win this game.
Well, I think Marshawn Lynch is definitely going to be a key to this. If they can get him to have a huge game, they win. But I don't really have the faith in Russell Wilson, and maybe this is the game where he comes out and he becomes I don't want to say elite quarterback, but he becomes a great quarterback and he proves us all that he can do it. But I just don't have the faith in him yet. It could be proven this game, but right now, if it's not Marshawn Lynch running that ball and getting that MVP, I don't think the Seahawks win.
See, the thing you have to remember, though, is last week, the Broncos held LeGarrette Blount to 6 carries for 5 yards. I mean, they kept the entire Patriots run game just completely shut down. They had four or five backs. I don't think any one of them had over 30 yards. So the big thing is Marshawn Lynch has to get started early this game. I mean, he's going up against, I don't want to say one of the better running defenses, but that is one of the few things that the Broncos defense does excel at.
Skittles is going to go up against a little pot roast.
Yeah, I love the nickname, by the way. A little pot roast, fantastic. The thing that you have to worry about, though, is, okay, if we're putting all our money on Marshawn Lynch, we're going to have Russell Wilson, who, let's be honest, his play has been underwhelming for the past couple of weeks. Almost the past year. I don't want to call it a sophomore slump, but his numbers aren't great. He's playing extremely conservative, and you have to wonder how much this game plan is going to work with Percy Harvin, a weapon who they're getting healthy for maybe the first time the entire year. This guy's a game changer. His speed, his quick plays, I mean, I think they're really going to try to get him going.
You beat me to the punch, Dave. I was going to say, of course, the Vikings fan is going to think and bring up Percy Harvin first, but the keys to the Seattle Seahawks offense in my mind, you're right. Marshawn Lynch has to get going early, but Russell Wilson and Percy Harvin to me has to be the type of player for Seattle that Wes Welker's going to be for the Broncos. If there's a 3rd and short, if there's maybe a 3rd and 10, Percy Harvin needs to be that guy. Slant route. Get the first down. Be able to get the Seahawks first downs to move down the field. I don't think Seattle's going to have success if they try to, let's say, bomb it to Doug Baldwin, bomb it to Golden Tate. It's going to be a very, let's just dink and dunk down the field, run with Marshawn Lynch, beast mode it, and maybe he'll break off a big run while the Legion of Boom keeps Peyton Manning at bay.
Well, I mean, the safeties for the Broncos, not really known for being too great at keeping people in front of them.
Well, Champ Bailey going, whoa, he's behind me.
I think, here's the thing. All right, when we're going to talk about Percy Harvin, I don't think you can say in a game plan Percy Harvin's a key to anything because he hasn't been there the whole time.
And he's
you can't
from
rely on
Minnesota.
that.
So.
Yeah. Being from Minnesota's first detriment. Second detriment, it was already proven how you get rid of Percy Harvin. You hit him hard twice, and then he's gone.
In the head.
He is a fragile player, unfortunately. But I still think his ability to... Okay, he comes in, and he's the number 1 wide receiver, just like that, just for being conscious during the game. So I think they really have to work towards getting him the ball as much as possible. Being a receiver, I'm sorry, it's not like he can't just step in and go out there, run a couple routes, grab the ball. It's not like something he has to get all prepared for each week,
Something I would like to see out of the Seahawks, I would love them to now go into almost what the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick were doing, where Harbaugh said, go for it. Have fun out there. Let Russell Wilson loose. Let him run as much as he wants to run. Let him kind of make some more riskier plays. Smart still, but riskier plays. Because like Dave said, it is so conservative. This whole season's been conservative. They're avoiding getting him hurt. It's the Super Bowl. Let him go out there and be the talented athlete that he is.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is one of my other things I was going to bring up was the coaching for each team. Pete Carroll said today that we've been preparing for this ever since he took the job. So, like, right now, it's kind of like, okay, we've been preparing for this so long, we're just going to get business done. I think that Pete Carroll, knowing what to do, he's played in the national championship, or coached in the national championship, I should say, in college, can kind of bring that over and help his team prepare for this Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be very interesting with the game plan that he brings and just being on the big stage before, whether it be for the NFL or for college. I mean, they're both a really big stage either way. But what I think would be really cool is if, one, honestly, I can't say I'm necessarily going for either team. I really do like Peyton Manning, and I will root for him till the day I die or he dies. He'll probably go first, though. Is that either one, it'd be great to see him win because they have come a long ways. They're both very talented teams. But if Seattle wins it, they're going to win it. They would win it with a receiving core of nobodies. Literally nobodies.
Well, I mean, you look at the receivers this year for Seattle. Doug Baldwin, who? Golden Tate. Oh, I think he played for Notre Dame, right? Zach Miller. Oh, does he play tight end? I don't even
Is
know
he
what
still with
plays.
the Raiders?
I was going to say, that's
You
the
have
last time I heard his name
Jermaine
positive.
Kearse. Marshawn Lynch is received out of the backfield, but the actual receiving core, Sidney Rice, is he still even on the Seahawks?
I think he's on the sidelines hurt.
But, like, that's my point, is the general NFL fan, the casual NFL fan, isn't going to know the Seahawks receivers. But when you look at the Broncos, Wes Welker, Eric Decker, all the ladies think he's hot. All the guys think his wife is hot. Then
And
you
they're
have
right.
Julius Thomas. You have Demarius Thomas. More people are going to know the Bronco receivers than the Seahawks receivers.
Although you could make the same argument, although the Broncos receivers are all good receivers, that they're being helped out a ton by Peyton Manning.
I was going to say, when you have 4 receivers above 700 yards and all pretty close to double-digit touchdowns as well, you got to give the credit to Peyton Manning where it's due. I mean, yeah, these guys would probably have good numbers in another system with a different quarterback, but come on, it's Manning.
Well, and that's like I was listening to sports radio here in Chicago on my way home from work, and they were talking about no matter what happens in this Super Bowl, win or lose, Peyton Manning's in the Hall of Fame. When he retires, he automatically will probably get that bid to the Hall
Is
of
this even
Fame.
a conversation?
Well,
Agreed.
broke
Wait,
2 records.
but this is
3 records.
This
after
is what they
season.
did. They went on to say he's going to go into the back room where all the elite quarterbacks are, and that's where you have the conversation of win or lose this game, and you start ranking.
How is it a conversation? I still don't get it. I mean, okay, if we're looking at elite quarterbacks, okay, you've got Montana up there. You've got Brady. You've got Bradshaw.
Don't forget Marino.
Greatest
of all time.
Favre. And Manning.
Unitas. You're going to throw Unitas in there.
guess.
You're going to throw...
Y.A. Tittle.
and then you got Joe Namath.
See, I feel like you're just naming quarterbacks to name quarterbacks now.
Well, that's what you were doing.
I was naming top-level quarterbacks who deserve to be in a different standard than random Hall of Fame quarterbacks who are clearly trash, in this case.
And I mean, Peyton Manning, no one's arguing that. I mean, there was a writer in Denver that was like, oh, what's Peyton's legacy going to be? He's a Hall of Famer, win or lose.
I mean,
Am I wrong?
well, you have to break it off as this new age of quarterbacks and new age of football in general. The game is played differently than it was, so you can't really go purely by stats because stats today just blow things out of the water. So when it comes down to measurables, it has turned into, well, how many rings have you won for me? And that's not even a great measurable. It's just comes down to like, okay, we won that 1 year and that one game. But that doesn't mean that Peyton Manning being the greatest normal season quarterback of all time doesn't count for anything. So I still consider him one of the top tier quarterbacks, even in the Hall of Fame, regardless of Super Bowl
I mean,
rings.
I know you're saying you can't compare the stats, but he's got the records.
Oh, no, he's
He's got every single one, essentially. I mean, the important ones. Touchdowns in one game, touchdowns in a season, yards in a season.
well, he's tied for touchdowns in a game with,
With
some
Nick
greats.
Foles.
Yeah, Nick Foles.
Great quarterback, starting quarterback.
On
Nick
his
Foles.
way.
He'll probably be number 2 in the Hall of Fame
He's
soon.
on his way to the Hall of Fame. He's working on it.
But yeah, I mean, your point is perfect. It's kind of like talking about the steroid era of baseball. This is a different era of football. You got Dan Marino earlier this week talking about how in today's football he could throw for 6,000 yards. And he's probably right.
Entirely possible.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just the way it is now. But when you break the eras apart, Peyton Manning is the best of this era.
Is second best
Tom
to Tom
Brady.
Brady.
See, I'm gonna,
Who's got the records is what I want to say.
Who does
Who's got
Tom
the
Brady
Super
have on
Bowl?
his team?
The thing also
Who's on Tom Brady's
Tom-
team? Who's done more for their
Rings.
team?
Both of them have
Rings.
always made the
Rings.
people around them better.
And
Bling,
who,
bling.
Who
You
got
made them just a
records-
little bit better more often?
bling, bling.
Tom
Because
Brady.
yeah, but here's the thing: is that Belichick or is that Tom Brady? Peyton Manning is his own coach. Belichick is coaching Tom Brady.
Wait a second. How was Belichick before Drew Bledsoe went down?
He was doing fine.
He
How was
goes
he doing on the?
down,
Yeah, say how
and
did
then Tom
Belichick do it
Brady
his
comes
other
in.
jobs?
He
Not
didn't.
so
Have,
great.
he didn't have Tom Brady. Then.
You know, I think it's a hard one to pinpoint. Oh, this guy is definitely a lock over the other one because you guys have already said it. Peyton Manning is the one who has the records, who has the humongous stats all the time, and Tom Brady is the one that does have the rings. But I think Peyton has played just as good, if not better, than Brady, but just been put in a different situation.
If the Seahawks win this Sunday, I think whenever someone brings up Peyton Manning after he retires, it's going to be Peyton Manning. Oh, he's a great quarterback. He's in the Hall of Fame, but he's 1-2 in Super Bowls. It's always going to be followed by
He
that.
also has a shitty
but
postseason
he's
record.
1-2 in Super Bowls.
Tom Brady has the best postseason record
No, I'm
ever.
just saying.
that's just
People
the
are
thing.
not going to argue that he's not one of the greatest quarterbacks, but
He's
it's
not
going to follow with that
clutch.
but. It's going to always be but this, but that.
But what it's going to be is the fact that Tom Brady is practically playing for the Yankees of football, and everyone's going to look at that and be
Wait,
like,
wait.
"Oh, that's
How are
that
the
that."
Yankees of football? They don't spend money on anyone.
But they win all the time, and I
They're
hate
the
them.
dynasty and the exactly the
so they're the
dynasty
St.
of evil,
Louis Cardinals
essentially.
of football.
No, I can still
So
consider them the Yankees.
are they to this era of football as the Bulls were to the 90s? I think that fits better
think
than
peop-
Yankees.
No, because people didn't hate. Well, I mean, I guess maybe you can make.
No,
that
no, no.
We're from
You're,
Chicago.
you're
You can't
saying
say people didn't
people
hate
don't
the
hate
Chicago.
it
That's why
because we're from
that's why I
Chicago.
stopped myself. I was like, wait, no, yeah, okay.
What the Patriots did
Check the bias.
Ask
was-
someone from New York if
is
they
separate
love
from
the Bulls.
the Yankee
They
style
love
of
the
buying
Bulls.
championships, though. They didn't buy their championships. They won them. They outplayed other teams with less talent.
Well, and this is one of the things that now that you guys have brought up the Patriots, that I was watching NFL Live today, and one of the questions they asked was, what do you prefer? A guy like Peyton Manning, who's the seasoned veteran in this game, or the guy like Russell Wilson, who's basically a newbie to the Super Bowl? And both Slareth and both Teddy Bruschi were like, oh, give me the seasoned veteran. I'll take him anytime. But it was funny because Teddy Bruschi's like, oh, I like the seasoned veteran, but we did it both ways at the Patriots. So, like, what's the difference then? Because Tom Brady did it.
Well, the difference is hindsight is what the difference is. When it's really easy 5 years from now when, Russell Wilson's won 3 Super Bowls to be like, yeah, we'll take the newbie. That's fine. 5 years from now, it's also really easy to say when Russell Wilson has 0 Super Bowls, I would have taken the seasoned veteran.
What I'm basically going at, though, for our purpose is, what do you guys think? Is it going to be better that Peyton Manning has a little bit of Super Bowl experience and he's a seasoned veteran? Or is Russell Wilson, can you knock him for being a newbie in this situation, for it being his first Super Bowl?
I don't think you can knock the guy. I mean, he's made it to the Super Bowl in what, his second or third year it is. He's in his second year. I mean, I think that is, it's not just him. It's definitely the guys around him, and it's definitely that defense. And they say the cliche phrase of, defense wins championships, and it really does.
So you're saying Seattle's going to win?
I'm not saying Seattle is going to win. I'm just saying that if they do win, it's not about the offense. It's about the defense.
See, and that's interesting because all week they're like, oh, this is what Manning does in his pre-reads, and he'll switch with his Omahas, and he likes to read the defense before. But the Seahawks are just going to say, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to change. We're just going to do it and execute.
That's been the talk, though, for since week 16, I think, is when that talk's been. And how many games have the Broncos lost since all these teams are saying, we're not going to move. We're just going to sit here. Peyton Manning still picks them apart.
How many of them are the best scoring defense in the league?
That's right. I get that, Seahawks. But let's also remember that lately the Seattle Seahawks defense has been on a bit of a downturn.
How many other teams
until the 49ers
have Earl
game.
Thomas, have Richard Sherman?
No, that's true, but I'm just saying the fact remains that this has been the popular talk now, and it hasn't worked yet.
I'm saying the only team that, if you ever said, Ricky, one team that'd be able to do this, it's the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sure.
The whole setup is they're not the New York Jets. They're not going to have all these stunts, all these trick setups on the defense, having 5 linemen standing pre-snap and having people scramble around in the backfield. That's not their style. They're the number 1 team as far as turnover ratio. They're going to get the ball. It's not like if Peyton Manning plays an immaculate game, I will be completely shocked. This defense is legit, and I think they're going to have the chance to take the ball away. I think they're going to get to Peyton Manning.
Well, they're going to get to Peyton Manning. Not all the time, but some of the time, because these corners, they're not going to be afraid to rough the receivers up a little bit coming off the line.
That's something I'm interested to see, is how the refs are going to call that. If they're going to give them a little let them play attitude, which is what I'm hoping for. Because I'm sick of all the penalty flags. And, oh, my God, he touched his jersey. That's a penalty right there.
I think recently we've seen the Seahawks get a lot of penalties. And also, to remember, this is the Broncos. The NFL likes the Broncos a lot.
Seahawks are the most penalized team in the NFL.
They're going to protect those Bronco receivers, I think, in this game. And I think it will – the talk, especially if the Broncos win the Super Bowl, I think there's going to be – rhetoric out there that the refs kind of helped out and made it easier for the Broncos.
And Mark, I'm just going to say, you saying that the refs favoring the Denver Bronco receivers, Seattle fans might be cringing right now because we all know the last time Seattle made the Super Bowl, the refs were really favorable to the Steelers.
Got fucked.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I hope for our sake, I hope we don't see another Super Bowl. I don't think it'll be on that level. But I hope the refs do play.
You already know my prediction. There's going to be at least one big call that we're talking about on Monday.
Well, last year you and Dave thought it was the pass interference.
It was
and air
pass
quotes
interference.
on the
That's
last
saying.
play of the game.
Yeah.
It was pass interference. They just chose not to call it because it was the end of the game.
How often do you see them end the game on a penalty? They don't like to do it. They like to let them play on that.
Well, and that's going to be, to me, the way I see this game going in the end, and we'll get to predictions. I'll start with mine. I have 2 scores, 2 situations. I'm leaning towards
Ricky
one.
always does
you
this.
gotta
Ricky
pick
always
one.
does this.
I'm saying
Quit
one,
hedging your-
but I have
hedging your
2.
bets.
I think it's going to be 13-10 Seahawks.
That-
Wait.
That is a horrible.
13-10
Thank you.
Seahawks.
Thank you, Brandon.
On the other side, the other score is going to be 17-13 Broncos. It's going to come down
Still
to the
pretty
last drive, last play, Peyton Manning, Richard Sherman, who makes the play. That's the winner. But I'm saying 13-10 Seahawks.
Ricky, you're an idiot. Mark, your predictions?
Okay, so here's what I gotta say. That low-scoring game, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think it's going to be an interesting game. Super Bowls aren't close. That's just a thing that happens. Rarely is there a close Super Bowl. I don't think this one's going to be all that much different. And even though last year, it was close.
Oh, it was
One
close.
team got completely outplayed though until a certain
power outage.
Yeah, somebody pulled a plug. But anyways, in this game, I don't think it's going to be that close. I do think it will be within 2 possessions, but I wouldn't consider that, as close as people want it. I think the Broncos win. I think it's going to be in the 20s. I don't want to give an actual score because that's just silly.
You got to give a score. You got to give something.
27-20. I don't know.
Okay.
There you go. Or no, that doesn't work for my
That's only
prediction.
one score.
28-20. There you go.
That's still only one score. Try again.
29-20.
How many times have you seen an NFL
here's the
team
thing,
with
though.
29 points?
We're gonna take away the field goals anyways in the NFL and the extra points in the
Okay.
future. So I'm thinking like Roger Goodell.
Brandon, what do you think?
Well, what I think that it's going to be a game that's really not all that close in the end. I agree with Mark and Ricky. I think that you're way off on your predictions.
We'll see.
We're not playing in the snow.
We'll see.
But I think it's going to be 35-21. Denver gets the win. Just a really high-powered offense. Defense is great. The defense for Seattle is great, but Peyton Manning is going to show why he is such a good quarterback. However, he will throw an interception. Richard Sherman will intercept it and then almost have a massive heart attack as he celebrates afterwards.
LOB, baby. LOB, Legion of Boom.
All right, so I've got a couple points. First off, it's interesting that you guys are saying, it's not going to be within 1 score, because the Seahawks, I think there's a ridiculous stat, like, for the last 2 seasons almost, they haven't been blown out. Like, they've kept it within a score, I think a score or 9 points within every single game. So every game is very competitive with the Seahawks team. Final prediction for this game, I'm going with Seahawks 24, Broncos 17. I think it's going to be a very close game. And I'm a little afraid, though. I think the Broncos, they're the favorites for a reason. So I'm going with the upset.
Well, and that's going to end our Super Bowl talk. Brandon, you got to get going. But I'm going to ask you one thing before you leave. It was great having you on the podcast.
It was great being
But
here.
the real
appreciate
reason why we brought you on was for the prop bets. And the most interesting one, what song is Bruno Mars? You're a Bruno Mars expert. What song is he going to sing first at halftime?
I really think it's going to be Gorilla. I don't really think that song's that good,
He's
but I
not,
think
he's
it's
not
going to
going to catch a
Gorilla.
grenade for us to start it off?
He's definitely not going to catch a grenade for you because that was about 4 years ago.
Or is he going to lock us out of heaven?
Well, you could be locked out of heaven first, but I think that he's going to come at you with a giant gorilla suit, in a giant gorilla suit.
Well, there you have it. And Brandon, as always, it's great having you on. You're welcome back whenever you want. We love having you on here.
Whenever
you want.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, guys, now it's time to shift our attention from the Super Bowl over to what happened Friday during the day. Roger Goodell had his State of the League address where he talked about possible playoff expansion, a team in London, future cold weather Super Bowls. But the one thing that struck me was this new playoff system that he talked about, because he wants to add, him and the NFL want to add 2 more playoff teams. That would be 1 more team for each conference, which would make 3 games in the wild card round instead of 2, because it would take the second seeded team and make them play.
So here's the thing I gotta say. I don't think it's a bad idea to add these, teams from each division and then kind of just expand it by one. I don't think that's a bad idea. You still have the bye for the number 1 seeded team. That's still important. You didn't take anything away from division winners. That's still important. The only thing you do, you can't. I understand the argument of someone saying it does diminish divisions a little bit by adding an extra wild card. I can understand that argument. Don't 100% agree with it, but I don't 100% disagree with it. Now, what I want to say is the reason I don't like this idea, there's nothing wrong with the playoffs. The playoffs are perfectly fine the way they are, so don't touch it. Don't mess with it and add one more game. I don't like that idea. You already have, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. Do we get 3 one of these days, or does it go to Monday?
What I'm assuming they would do is if you had 3 games, or it would be 6, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 2 on Monday.
Wait, you said
because you got 2 conferences.
Oh, okay, so you have 2 on
You have 2 conferences.
You can't have 2
it'd be 6 games total.
You can't have 2 games on Monday though.
You can.
They've done 2 Monday nights.
Yeah, but it's always a West Coast game.
Yeah, what if it's the West Coast division leader?
You can't just assume it's going to be a West Coast team.
No, I'm not saying assume, but there's a pretty good chance that unless it's like the Denver Broncos get the number 1 seed.
The West Coast teams usually are in, the furthest time zone.
Mm-hmm.
You might get a West Coast team that's actually just 1 hour behind us over here in the Central time zone.
I'm just saying,
they're playing a game at 10 o'clock at night.
I'm just saying that Monday Night Football does that, though, every year on the first game of the Monday night season.
But this is the playoffs, Ricky. If the whole point is that we want to monetize this and get the most money out of it, because without a doubt, that's the point. I don't care what any Cardinal fan wants to say. The point is the money.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get great ratings from, putting a game at 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The scheduling would have to change. I think they'd have to go an additional game on Sunday. I think it would be 2-3-1 would have to be their best setup. But then it kind of brings, you're trading off a second Monday nighter for a Sunday morning game. It's okay. It's still within the normal format of scheduling, though.
Yeah, and I think one thing with that, too, is one thing that has to be brought up is who gets the Monday game. Because the team that gets the Monday game is inherently at a disadvantage because they then have to go play Saturday or Sunday the following week. They don't get a full week of and if they play a team that played on Saturday and now they're playing on Sunday, they lose one day, that team gained a day. It makes a difference. Having just one simple day of practice will, in fact, make a difference. It doesn't... And obviously, you can have situations where a Saturday team plays a Sunday team in the current situation. So that can happen and that can cause problems, too. But at the same time, you don't really get that same disadvantage. I think it's not a bad idea, but it's just kind of trying too hard and it's not going to really work out as well as it could.
Yeah, and one of the things I do like about this possible adding of 2 playoff teams is it kind of makes that home field advantage, that number 1 spot, even more coveted. Where it's not like, you know what, we didn't get 1, at least we're the 2, we get a bye. If this happens, now it's like, oh shit, we got to get number 1 or we're not getting a bye, and we want that week off.
Yeah, it puts a lot more pressure on that number 1 spot, but it also kind of means, we can slink into the playoffs at 8-8 or maybe even 7-9 if we get lucky. And that's what I'm worried about, is diminishing the level of competition at that point. The NFL has kind of evened out its talent base. We don't see as many truly terrible versus truly great teams. There are special cases like the Lions a couple of years ago, the Jaguars, unfortunately, for the past couple of years. But still, it's the point of the games are a little bit closer now. Nowadays, teams are closer on talent levels. So as far as diminished talent goes, I'm not a huge worried about that. I think the playoff idea, again, it all comes down to money at this point. There's no real reason to force an extra team in each playoff. So I think it's Goodell being greedy, and it's a business,
Well, I just looked up this past season in the playoffs. The scheduling, it could actually fit. Because on Saturday this year in the wild card, you had Chiefs-Colts at 4:35 Eastern, Saints-Eagles, 8:10 Eastern. You can have a 1 o'clock Eastern game. You could fit a game in there. And then on Sunday, we had 1 Eastern Chargers Bengals, 4:40 49ers Packers. You could fit a game in the primetime slot that night. So it's possible.
Now let's
1, 4, 8 both days.
For anybody who's wondering right now and listening, let's put it out there. The Cardinals would be the NFC team.
And the Steelers would be the AFC team
and
this
year. And the Steelers were what, 8-8?
Yep, 8
and
and 8.
The Cardinals were 10-6.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not necessarily awful, but just so you know, that's what it would have been.
And I mean, going back future years, I mean, kind of to stick it home for you guys, our past years, to stick it for you guys. If this was last year, the Bears would have got in. And the Bears were 10-6 last year.
And then they wouldn't have fired Lovey.
They wouldn't have fired Lovey. But yet again, in the AFC,
thanks, Goodell,
Pittsburgh would have got in at 8-8. In 2011, yet again, the Bears would have got in at 8-8.
Man.
And the Titans would have got in at 9-7. And if you keep going back,
now here's a weird
yet
thing.
again, another team in 2010, Giants 10-6 would have been in.
So the year, and this is just me thinking off the top of my head, the year, that 2010 year, that 2010 season where the Bears beat the Seahawks and the Seahawks beat the Rams in order to get into the playoffs.
Yep.
Who would have been the team?
You would have
got
played
in
the
that
Giants.
Team? No, but who's the AFC team that would have gotten in?
That would have been San Diego at 9-7.
Okay.
So there's no team all the way back. I went back until 2009. No team would have gotten in that was 7-9 except for Seattle because they won the division.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that situation, it's interesting. I don't know. Something about having extra teams in there, yes, it does inherently diminish a little bit. Not a ton, so it's not the worst idea. If this happens next year, I'm not jumping up and down upset. I'm not thrilled. I'm just kind of in this little medium area.
See, but exactly. There's no football reason for it to happen. It's just because.
Well, I think it helps out. Well, for the NFC, I see it perfectly because since 2010, the 7th-seeded team has been 10-6, and you could justifiably say, okay, a 10-6 team, I could see them being playoff worthy. It's the AFC that's been 8-8, 9-7.
Slackers in the AFC.
Well, the AFC isn't as close as the NFC is. I mean, who saw the Cardinals being a 10-6 team besides Dave?
Yeah, Dave got
Thank
that
you.
one.
Besides Dave.
Even though Carson Palmer underperformed a little this year towards my expectations, he still did a great job.
Honey Badger was he came out and did things that I didn't think he was going to.
Yep. Talent beats personality sometimes. I'm sorry. It just does.
And I mean, the thing with the playoffs, like you said, Dave, the NFL is a business. And I kind of feel like, yes, it helps make everything more competitive. But the one key that Goodell said is that I favor this because it's going to create more moments, more memories for our fans to talk about in the future.
I think one thing I got to think about, though, with this, and it's not a huge deal, but if you're the number 2 seed, what advantage do you really have over a division winner?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
you get to play one more home game, you get a bye.
Yeah, you don't get a bye. The number 2, I'm talking about in this proposed system.
Oh, you get a home game.
You get a home game. That's basically the only advantage you have.
So that's why, I mean, that's the thing I like is that, like I said, it makes that competition for the number 1 spot more competitive.
I somewhat dislike that because you could have a team that's in a shitty division that just happens to get 6 wins out of that. And now they're just lucky they got 6 wins where, you know, a team in the NFC East.
How often have you seen a team win a conference and be like, they lucked into that?
If they're in a shitty conference, that is the answer. If you're in a bad conference and you're the team blowing everybody away, then yes, you get 6 wins given to you,
Mark,
basically.
let's say it this year. AFC it was Denver, and in the NFC it was Seattle. Did either of them luck into the number 1 seed?
No, this season is a more evened out season.
Last year, Atlanta 13-3, Denver 13-3.
Yes, and Denver and Atlanta both basically just have walked in with theirs because they didn't have that much competition in their division.
In 2011, Green Bay at 15-1, New England 13-3.
Green Bay obviously had easy time getting there, but their division was a little harder.
And then as far as we went back in the other one, so I'll go back as far in this one, Atlanta 13-3 in 2010, New England 14-2.
The 2010 year, I'm pretty sure the Saints put up a fight against this.
The Saints were 11-5 at the fifth
so
seed.
that one they didn't.
And
walk
you
in as
and you
easily.
also had the Bears at 2 at 11-5, but Green Bay was 10-6.
Yep. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. The fact that if you're in a crappy division, the number 1 seed's a lot easier to get than a team such as anyone from the NFC North, anyone from the NFC South. It's a little tougher.
See, I still think, though, it's more than just the divisional games because usually what we're seeing is you have to win at least 12 or 13, 14-plus games to get that number 1 spot. So you have to be a good team to get it. And now moving on, another thing that Roger Goodell talked about, he was asked about by a UK reporter, how close are we to getting a London team? And Goodell kind of dodged the question by saying, well, I don't think we're going to get one right away, but we're moving closer. Fans in London are more interested in the game. We're selling out the 3rd straight game, looking for a 4th. And I'm still sitting here going, why? Why do we want to move a team to London? What's the point?
He's trying to make the NFL a global brand. The NBA reached out and is successful in multiple other countries and different markets. And now, NBA, I mean, there's no one in the world who doesn't know, NBA stars. NFL is still really limited down to North America. I mean, yeah, we play the game in Mexico, we play the game in London.
Yeah, but
that's about it.
The one thing the NBA has, though, is European players have come over, like Ricky Rubio, Tony Parker. We do have international players being drafted in the NBA and playing in the NBA. How many international players do you get playing football?
We used to have the European Football League, but it was taken down basically due to lack of attendance, lack of funds. So I think it's kind of proven that on their own they can't hold up. But if you try to soak them into the NFL like Goodell is thinking, start with 1 team, then maybe put up to 4.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's okay. As far as travel plans go, it's ridiculous. You're going to force teams to fly back and forth.
Especially if it's like, let's say, we'll throw Jacksonville out there because they're the popular team to be moving. Let's say the AFC South is playing the AFC West that year. You're going to travel from London to the West Coast and vice versa?
I think one thing we got to say, though, Jacksonville's not going anywhere. Jacksonville's...
They're still... if you
Jacksonville's not
listen to
going
media, you listen to anything, the 2 teams that everyone's saying is going to move, Jacksonville to London, Rams to LA.
Jacksonville's not going anywhere. I think right now, if a team goes to London, it's a new team. It's an expansion.
You got to add 2. You can't have an odd number.
They want to add 2 right now. They
See,
want to add someone to Buffalo. They want our Canada area. They want to add someone to LA if no one's willing to move there. There's always the conversations about putting an extra team
Yeah, but
in
what do
New
you do?
York,
Okay.
Chicago, one of these big market type cities.
Let me ask you this then, because you brought it up. Right now, we're kind of a little perfect, I'll say. Each division has 4 teams. It's very symmetrical. It's not hard to pay attention to. You add 2 teams, you're going to have to redo the divisions. How the fuck do you do that?
The NFL's already proven they have no problem redoing divisions.
I'm not saying having a problem, just how do you do it? How many teams do you have in division? You have to rework everything just to add a team in London.
I really don't think it does change much. At first, I think maybe you change it back to 3 divisions in each conference or something like that. But I think with just adding 2 teams, 1 in each conference, essentially what you do is you just put 1. Let's say a team goes to LA. It's an expansion team in LA. Congrats, you're in the AFC West, NFC West, whichever division. For the team in London, since apparently that's where we're going, congrats, you're in the AFC or NFC East. That's essentially just the way it's going to have to go because it's just the only thing that makes sense. You can't, with an odd number, especially a number like 17, there's nothing you can do to
make it
out.
even like it is now. I see that. I mean, me personally, I'm just going off of I like the symmetricalism.
Yeah.
And just with the London team, this is what I feel. I'm going to use Jacksonville as a reference. I'm not going to say that they're actually moving, but let's say you move a team like Jacksonville to London. Yeah, London's excited right now. We got an NFL team. Woo! Talk to me in 2 years when Jacksonville sucks.
Hey, Jacksonville's on the up and up.
No. But when you move a team and they suck, and then London's like, well, we don't want this. We suck. We're not playing in the postseason.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right now, they're selling out games every time they go to London because it's a spectacle. It's a special event for them. It's not a weekly occurrence.
It's 1
not
week.
Something that's going to be there week in, week out for years. So I think you have to change your expectations as far as sales go. And I'm sure Goodell's looked into this. He's a very smart businessman. And if he does it, he knows it's going to work. I mean, that's just one of those situations where I trust in Goodell as far as throwing money in the right direction.
I really think with Goodell, and you're right, he's obviously looked into this more than any of us have. But I think the thing for Goodell is I think they want it because it's a good business move.
Mm-hmm.
But it logistically doesn't make sense. And I think that's where the stall is. Because if they wanted this team would be there.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say. The reason why I feel like Goodell dodged the question today was he wasn't sure exactly if they want to or not. And you got to even think about this. The NFL isn't a business where Goodell says, oh, we're going to do this, bangs the hammer, and it's done. He's got to talk to the owners. The owners have to vote on it. It's got to go through their vote, and then maybe we see it happen.
And the Players Association.
Yep.
You got guys who are going to have to play in Europe and then take, what, is it like a 9-hour plane ride to get across,
Yeah, it's
Too
going
damn
to
long,
be
that's
at
what
least
it
9 or
is.
10 hours.
It's asking for a lot out of these guys.
And I mean, then with the time difference, a primetime game in London is going to be different than primetime over here in the States. So you're going to me, that's going to affect your TV.
Yeah, it's a 6-hour difference. So, I mean, you could have London being a nightcap and it would be an afternoon game for us here.
Yeah, and I think one thing for this game, it's the question of the schedule. Is it 6 weeks in London and then you come over, or 8 weeks in London and then you come over to the United States to play all your different teams? It just kind of, to me, it just seems like a nightmare to have to figure that out.
And what happens if they make the playoffs?
Yeah, exactly. Then you have this weird thing. Is it just set in stone of you guys cannot have home games? Sorry, you can't. And if there's a stadium over there, I'm sure it's going to be a nice stadium.
You know what?
Do we have a Super Bowl in London
That's what I was
eventually?
just going to bring up, because the next thing Goodell talked about was future Super Bowls, maybe another cold weather one. I was just thinking, well, if you want to get the brand in London, why not have a Super Bowl in London? You have 2 weeks to prepare for the Super Bowl, enough time for a team to fly over there and get accustomed. I mean, yeah, the Super Bowl would be earlier for time's sake, but why not?
Because then all the fans of the teams that made it could...
It's
But
not
you're
like
ha-
the, it's not
you're
like
having
the
the
fans
same
of the
problem
teams that
this
can make
year.
it can go.
Exactly. I was going to say, do you expect, like...
It's at least 3,000 miles for the closest fans in Denver to get to New York.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're asking way... You're going to lose so much in profits based off of the home team fan, or the teams actually playing in the game, not being able to make it to see their own team play in the Super Bowl.
I still think you'd be able to pull people, because you'd get the people in London who are excited. You'd get the people who, oh, cool, I get to go and experience a new culture while taking in a Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl is like a reward for cities. I don't think it should be seen as like, oh, look, we're trying to spread our brand, and let's get a bunch of people who don't understand football to go watch the best game that we play throughout the entire season.
Yeah, talk about no passion out there. Those fans will have fun. They'll be enjoying themselves. But if you watch the London games now, you can tell they're enjoying the game, but because they don't have a team, they don't know what's going on out there.
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's just they're watching the game.
You see people out there, especially I remember because the Chicago Bears fans in the room here, we had a London game not too long ago, and you see random jerseys that people are wearing. Like people wearing Tom Brady jerseys out there and stuff. It's like, Tom Brady? Where's the Patriots? There's no Patriots out here. It's just, because they don't understand the game. They don't have a team because we haven't given that to them yet. So I understand the point, and I brought up the question too, but it wouldn't work to have a Super Bowl in London. Although, I still don't like the way that the Super Bowl is not in somebody's backyard right now. I don't like that.
Well, and I mean, the next 3 Super Bowls are already locked up. No cold weather for a while. Next year is going to be in Arizona.
Yay.
Then it's going to be in Santa Clara,
Let's just say
California.
they missed a huge opportunity to have next year's Super Bowl be the one in Santa Clara, where it would be Super Bowl 49 in the 49ers Stadium.
That would have been kind
Wow.
of cool, yeah.
Yeah,
That-
fun
I didn't
marketing
even-
technique.
And then in Super Bowl after that, the third one, you have it in Houston. So we have Arizona, California, Houston. After that, we don't know, and there's many people who are like, well, could we have another cold weather Super Bowl? I know that Minnesota has been in talks of, we want a Super Bowl because we're opening a new stadium and it'd be nice for the city. But there's other people who are throwing out cities like Chicago even for a cold weather Super Bowl.
I would love to have a Super Bowl here in Chicago, obviously because I'm here and I can go watch it. It's the only time I'll ever be able to probably go watch a Super Bowl without spending money on the plane ticket, spending money on hotels, etc.
Yeah, but I don't know. To me, I feel like, and it's different than maybe someone who has gone to a Super Bowl because I've never been to one, but I feel like, yes, it'd be nice to have one in Chicago and just be able to go, but the whole experience of actually flying, staying in a hotel room, going to the game, I think that would be a blast.
Like press week?
I know.
Are you going to be able to get that much time off from work, though? Let's be real here.
I would stack vacation days just to do that.
Just to be prepared.
It is a once in a lifetime.
You're going to be preparing for this for years. Just make sure I have an entire week or 5 days in advance, just in case. Just in case the Vikings ever make it to the Super Bowl.
I'm just...
let's be honest. If that, yes.
I would go.
For a Vikings fan, I think
go.
that, yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. I kind of lean towards I'd like to actually, even though it's a ton of money I'd save up for it just to fly and take in that whole experience of being in a different city.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a cool thing. But to me, it doesn't change the fact that the way I feel the best...
You're lazy.
Type.
You don't want to spend all the money, Mark.
Oh, I mean, I don't have money to spend. But no, the way I feel about championship games... I love the Super Bowl. Absolutely love the Super Bowl. Stanley Cup finals are better. NBA finals are better. The World Series is better.
You think the World Series and the NBA finals are better?
Because you get the home crowd. There's nothing more exciting than a home crowd.
That's true.
And there is no such thing as a home crowd at a Super Bowl. At least not yet. 49ers, they have an opportunity to do it in 2 years.
See,
Houston's got an opportunity to do it in 3.
Notice how I said
Houston's a good team. Don't laugh. You laugh. They're a good team.
Johnny Manziel and the Houston Texans going to go to the Super Bowl that year?
It's possible.
Hey, I'm telling you, the Cardinals can do it.
Russell Wilson got in too.
Mm-hmm. And notice how when you brought up all the other championships, I said maybe not NBA, maybe not MLB. I'll give you the Stanley Cup because you have to think about hockey and the playoffs as an entire unit. The hockey playoffs, to me, are always more exciting than football. Plain and simple. Just because of a team getting hot at the right time. And it's usually a team that you don't expect to get hot.
It happens in football, too. I think
Sometimes.
your point is because it's drawn out over X amount of games between the same two teams just clashing night after night after night. That is definitely a different situation than a one-game winner-take-all situation in his football setup. But I got to disagree with you. I mean, hockey, okay, fantastic.
How
you
many
have a series.
And how many
Baseball,
close games do we
home
see in
field
hockey
advantage is
compared
huge, too.
to football playoffs?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's due to the nature of scoring in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think baseball is the same thing with home field advantage. The fans really get into it. Come on, remember a couple years ago with the Rally Monkeys?
Yeah, but I
And
mean...
each year there seems to be a story.
The thing that I'm weary about, though, is especially with the World Series, especially because...
It's just because you're a Cubs fan. You don't care because you won't be there.
Okay,
Yep.
but Sox fans, too, there's...
2005.
No. But I'm saying, like, this past year, you guys weren't in the World Series either.
Right.
I didn't fucking care about the World Series. It was like, whatever.
No, but I'm saying
the Super Bowl
event is exciting.
But the Super Bowl, no matter who's in it, I always make sure not doing anything that day, might go to a Super Bowl party, but I'm watching that game, not gonna miss it.
I agree with that, but I'm saying if you take comparisons of the actual excitement level of everybody in the stadium, it's more exciting.
The fans are passionate about their own team.
Without a doubt, the conference games are better than the Super Bowl. If you were to take, and I'm going to take Seattle out of this, if you were going to take a decibel reader, if you would read the decibels of the Denver and Patriots game, I know I did that weird, but the Denver-New England game, it would be louder than the Super Bowl. because it's just people are more passionate about their team there, which, yes, there are plenty of people who are supporting their team there, but there's also a lot of people who happen to have the money and go, yeah, I do want to go to a Super Bowl.
A lot of corporate stuff set up already.
But I mean, and maybe this is because it's a totally different nature, but I'm going to compare it to football in general. The championship game has always been neutral site. I mean,
there's only one game.
I mean, look at this past BCS championship, the final one we had. Florida State and Auburn traveling all the way to California. I know it's different. I know it's college. The culture of the fans in general is different. But you didn't hear anyone bitching about traveling all the way to California when they were all the way on the East Coast.
But it still doesn't change the fact that the game is not as exciting and passionate as it could be.
Exactly. Having home field fans is just
There's no
massive.
replacement.
Well, and that's why I said take college out of it. Because you look at
Yeah.
that BCS championship game, it looked like you had half Auburn over here, half Florida State over here.
Well, plus you have a lot of times with college games, you have
they
the school
sell X amount
paying,
of X amount of seats.
and the school buses people
Mm-hmm.
out there if they're willing to go. Now, I think a thing too is we got to analyze the fact that the selection process for which city gets it is dumb. It's just, all right, who's got hotel rooms? Who's got enough seats? How's that field looking? Do you got a dome?
And I mean,
And downtown area too, because they need to set up for all the media days.
Oh, exactly.
And take over basically an entire block.
I know this couldn't happen, but something that I think would be interesting, reward the city that won the Super Bowl the previous year. So this time, okay, Baltimore, congrats. Your team won last year. We are rewarding your city
by giving you a
by
Super
giving
Bowl.
you the Super Bowl.
I almost like the idea, except it's a
It doesn't
slap in
work.
the face.
Yeah.
Because teams don't repeat.
Yeah,
It's like,
definitely.
Well,
You
unless
guys did great last year. Too bad you sucked this year. We're going to throw this party in your city, though.
Yeah, you're still getting some celebration.
the
It
thing-
is a slap in the face,
the
but
thing
I
I
think
think
it
about
rewards them
is-
from the previous year.
The thing I think about is think back to the Patriots when they repeated. You would have had, what, 3 Foxborough Super Bowls?
Would have been a fun
true.
time.
You would have had 3
Well,
straight
that
Super Bowls in
cold
the
time.
same spot.
A problem with that, though, you do have, obviously, small market areas. When Green Bay just won not too long ago, yeah, I mean, Green Bay would have exploded, obviously, but Green Bay is a
all
small...
30,000 of them?
Yeah,
I
it's
mean-
Well,
small.
And that'd be in Green Bay would be an interesting spot for a Super Bowl because if I'm not mistaken, not actual seats. They actually have
They
bleachers.
got the bleachers, yeah.
So I mean, maybe that's something that goes into are fans really going to want to sit and really I say who the fuck cares? If you're going to a Super Bowl, you'll sit in anything. But do they really want to sit in bleachers compared to seats?
So do they want to sit in Green Bay in January or February?
Oh, it'd be horrible. It would be horrible.
Could you imagine if the Super Bowl was here maybe like last weekend?
No, this weekend. We're going to have 8 inches of snow this weekend.
4 to 8 is what we're projected
they'd
overnight.
probably move the game then, at that point. But
Play it
I
on
mean,
Super Bowl Monday?
why not?
Super Bowl Monday.
But I just think it's basically it's a problem that can't really be fixed. It's not even really that much of a problem. It's just a weird process of something that we're stuck with. We can't do anything to change it, so we accept it. And it's not terrible.
Side tangent. Oh yeah, we're talking about the possibility of cold weather locations for the Super Bowl, and I understand because okay, you have a regular season which is played in both indoor and outdoor fields, and so there's the possibility that you're going to play in cold through roughly half the year, so that's fine. And extreme weather conditions do happen, like we saw with Philadelphia this year in the Snow Bowl, but I have a problem with baseball where it's played in the entire year almost is summer, ridiculous heat, middle of the day. And then for the playoffs, we're like, all right, flip a switch, we're playing at nighttime in the cold. Like, the season's too damn long. You're going through 3 seasons during the MLB regular season. And it's just, they need to cut down. It's just been bugging the crap out of me. It needs to be done while it's still warm out. And it's ridiculous. You're flipping a switch on people.
And I mean, to go back, because this is something that's been dwelling with me for the past 5 minutes. When you said, Mark, that the Super Bowl should be like World Series final, NBA Finals, Stanley Cup playoffs where there's a home field advantage, I have one problem with that. What if the Seahawks are the home field team? Because of how loud that stadium is. And I feel like, yes, you're probably saying to yourself, but Ricky, that's the whole point of home field advantage. But I feel like That's what the NFC and AFC playoffs are for. That's for your home field advantage. Once you get to the Super Bowl, it's who can prepare better and come to play on the biggest stage, which is not your home field.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that is part of the argument, and part of that is the fact that there is only one game. The Super Bowl is one game, winner takes all.
Because I mean, look at how
It definitely takes them out of their comfort zone. Yeah.
Look at how the Niners crept themselves until someone, like we said, pulled the plug.
They got to recollect their thoughts for a while. It was a good move.
They got to play Madden, have
Wasn't
fun
it?
out there.
I'm trying to remember. Jacoby Jones returned that kickoff just to open the second half, right? Right away, boom. The 100-yard kickoff he had for the Ravens, and then the power outage happened. Niners come back, and then your pass interference call, Mark, that never was.
It's true. But, I mean, I think the problem is if you have it – I mean, you answered your own question, Ricky. If you have it in a place like Seattle, that's the answer. That is what home field's about. The issue you have is if you have two, let's say, 13-3 teams, who gets home field?
Flip a coin.
And you don't have the Pro Bowl anymore, so the Pro Bowl doesn't decide anything.
Yeah,
That's what the Pro Bowl decides.
See,
it now makes sense,
okay,
people.
I'm going to add something to your little situation that is key. Two 13-3 teams that didn't play each other in the season.
Yeah. Essentially, then I would assume.
Do you go by points scored?
I would say no. I
You
would say
can't.
it goes. I mean, it basically goes down to the same tiebreakers that they have, which is home record, away record, division record, conference record, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's what it has to come down to, and eventually there's a point where they don't tie anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a thing where yes, people would complain if they're the team that has to be the away team in the Super Bowl, but I think it makes the game better. It's never going to change.
Yeah, but I mean, in every other championship that you listed, baseball, basketball, hockey, it's not one game.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest difference because you could play the first two games in Chicago, the NBA Finals, and then play the next two in San Antonio, and no one cares because everyone gets their own shot. In the Super Bowl, it's, oh, great, we got to go on the road, and it's win or go home.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. That's the reason why it's not going to ever change, but it's also the reason why the conference games are always going to be more exciting and more fun to watch than the Super Bowl.
Well, that's going to do it here for the Onside Kick. As always, hit that subscribe button, the like button. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And as always, have a good day, everybody.